Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We got Rudo and Megan here in studio and AJ in Studio C coming to you live, answering some listener questions today. Some other news did happen with the Carlson trade and Matt Dumba getting signed, but we might save that for Tuesday's show since we've got a lot of questions to get to here today. Are you guys ready? Do you guys just want to dive into questions, or you got anything else?
We should probably mention that this is going to be our new start time for the pod for the next couple of weeks.
A fair point.
We will go back, I think, to our regularly scheduled time slot at the end of August. But for the month of August, to accommodate some in-season teams, we are going to be going this time of day.
Yep. Tell all your friends, 10:45 Mountain, the new start time. I'm sure the East Coast people will love it because we hit their lunchtime now. I don't know. We'll go back, but then September we'll be doing shows after training camp happens. So who knows what our time is.
Right, that could be really different.
Yeah, we're going to be a little all over the place. But for the month of August, this is the new start time. Tell all your friends, come watch us live. Maybe they couldn't have watched us at our old time. They can watch now. Okay. I'm ready to jump in. We got quite a few questions, so thank you to everybody on Twitter who hooked all of that up. Are we ready? Okay, there's like a big echo, maybe? Hard to tell. Yep. I'm going to keep going and assume things will get sorted out. We got our first question that comes from Avs fan 12695, who asks, one or two moves that led to the dark times of the 2010s, not including retirements or lasting impacts. The thing is, I actually think a lot of the moves the Avs made were pretty good in this era. Like, they traded Wolski at his peak. He was never as good as he was in Colorado. Kind of the same thing with Chris Stewart. Their actual trade moves all made a ton of sense. They just never built a very good team. And some of this is multifaceted, where they didn't draft particularly well outside of pretty much Duchesne and O'Reilly. The 2009 class, basically. They didn't draft super well. Beyond that, they got stuck in the middle, where just leading into the 2010s, Sakic was playing out the end of his career. In the early 2010s, Hayduk was kind of playing out his career. It felt like a team that never really fully committed to a rebuild, but I'll let you guys answer as well.
Yeah, it was a team that did not have any star talent anymore. They had a pretty good player like Paul Stastny. Ironically, they drafted quite well through 2000 and about 2009. They were drafting pretty well beyond the first round. A bunch of guys that they had drafted actually ended up having long careers. But they didn't really get a lot of those guys just ended up as role players, middle of the lineup or bottom of the lineup guys that were able to hang in the league for a long time. They didn't have any stars. Really out. Paul Stastny was their best best player that actually played for them. There's lots of guys like Tom Gilbert and Johnny Boychuk.
Yeah.
Guys that had really good long careers, didn't do anything in Colorado because they got traded before they really got the chance. And so I think it was really just the star talent was severely lacking in Colorado, and their development back then was pretty fine. But it was just that they didn't have any of that the high end guys. They were hemorrhaging assets because they were still going for it absolutely all the time. And the way that they ended up, trying to make the most of Milan Hajduk and Joe Sakic is a totally fine approach to it. And then when he retired, 2009 was supposed to kind of usher that era in, and it like that transition into, okay, well, we're going to try and rebuild, we're going to do whatever, and it kind of did, with Paul Stastny, Matt Duchene, Ryan O'Reilly, and Tyson Barrie as building blocks, and Barrie would come a few years later, of course, but those were really good building blocks for a new era, because your center depth was great. And 2011, you had Gabe Landeskog. You get your leader plus a high end wing that you can build around. Like, it really should have been better than it was. They were never able to get any kind of defensive depth. They had a young goaltender that they acquired in his very early in his 20s in Varlamov that had a really solid run in Colorado. Like, they had all the pieces there. It was really it was not one or two moves. It just wasn't. They just never really got that, like, game breaking talent. And as we've learned in Matt Duchene's career, he's a really good hockey player. He's a really good NHL player. But if that's your best player, you're not good enough.
I think there was growing pains too with a cultural shift when the likes of Hayduk and Foote and Sakic moved on, and the new younger generation was ushered in. We think back to a season where Jaguar was reprimanding the team for being eager to go to Vegas, and that is a team that still had the likes of Landeskog. And so I think the cultural shift that was inevitably to follow was something that took time to build with some of those young players, and why perhaps even with a young Duchene and O'Reilly and Stastny as budding talents, the culture just hadn't quite shifted to what they would need to achieve success down the line.
Yeah, it kind of expanding on the Matt Duchene thing, right? It was a organization that just never hitched itself to the right wagons, I would say. Even going back to, like, if your top guys are Duchene, before that you have Svatos and Volsky, who are good players, or at least for a short time were good players. And realistically, at least in Wolski's case, Chris Stewart, I think another good example, were good players in Colorado. And the Avs did a good job of actually trading them before they fell off a cliff. But those guys can't be your best players for you to really be competitive at a playoff caliber level. And it is a bit weird because, like AJ said, they had good center depth. It's just they failed to build around it in any meaningful way. And it left them drafting Nathan McKinnon in 13-14. And the whole Patrick Waugh era if you're a more recent hockey fan. So
I wonder how things would have been different for Peter Mueller if he had stayed healthy too. He was someone that I had hope around, but obviously health wasn't on his side.
A guy who came in and actually did have an immediate impact until his head exploded, unfortunately.
I have to say the same thing about Joey Hishin, too.
Fair.
Yeah.
Was a Colorado first-round pick and was in the midst of a giant breakout when in Owen Sound, when he got that concussion from Braden McNabb that changed the course of his life.
A lot of injuries like that, not head-related, but Thomas Fleischman and his blood clotting in his lungs and stuff. A lot of things like that along the way that hurt the Avs, too. I think that more or less covers that question. I know we didn't answer it directly because it's kind of hard to. There's a whole lot of combination of things, more than just one or two moves. But the next question, one I think we've probably answered before, but we can answer again. If you all were running the Department of Player Safety, what is the first thing you would change? They say it's about punishing the result of hits and not just the hit themselves. We certainly, for AJ and I, we've long said, look, if you want to get head hits out of the game, every time someone gets a head hit, 5 games minimum. Make the suspension worth thinking about instead of a fine or one game where it's just not that big of a deal to these guys. If you want people to stop doing it, 5 games, maybe more, maybe 10 games, they'll say, hey, this is a serious punishment. We need to do a better job of not hitting people in the head. It's where I'm at, but Megan, I'm sure you have some thoughts as well.
I think you know where I stand on this topic. I'm all for incentivizing accountability, intent or not. I think that there is more ownership that could be taken in play, even when it's happening fast, and even when players don't intend to injure a player with a hit to the head or contact to the head, I think that it would motivate players to be more aware on the ice where they're at in any given situation if they know that there is a consequence that is going to be implemented each time, that is just consistently applied across the board. I think it'll change the way that players conduct themselves on the ice, but also I think players will also be more protective of themselves as well as a result of that. I understand that has real consequences from a business standpoint if star players are getting penalized and taken out of games, but
it has a consequence on the other end if they're getting hit in the head and taken out of games.
That's exactly how I feel. You just want to protect the safety of the players and their longevity in the league, and that comes with getting a little more serious about player safety.
Yep. Yeah, I really do think that one's pretty straightforward. It's easy to see how the Jeff Carter hit on Cale Makar doesn't happen when there's a bigger thing looming there, because Carter controls his body a little bit better because he knows that a 5-game suspension could be coming his way if he lets his elbows flare like that. So don't think that one's all that complicated. But next one, I already know AJ's answer to this, so I want to go to Megan first. But comes from Bob, who asks, why are waffles
son of a bitch
far superior to pancakes? First of all, do you even agree with that statement, Megan?
I feel like they're each respectively elite. Like, I want each in different situations. There would be moments where I would want a waffle over a pancake, but the opposite is also true. And I think it comes down to toppings with waffles and the little pockets that they have built in to put lots of toppings on them. And then with pancakes, you can put things inside of the batter like bananas or chocolate chips. I'm sure you can do this with waffles too, but that's just what I associate with pancakes and why I would maybe gravitate toward a pancake in that situation.
Okay, well, you're both wrong. French toast is better than both of them.
I like French toast, but I don't agree.
The little powdered sugar on some French toast, get the syrup on there. Oh, yes. That's better than both, all right?
How am I the one with diabetes? What the fuck? I'm going to put powdered sugar and syrup? What's wrong with you?
I'm pre-diabetic. Give me a couple more years. The type 2 will kick in. My
God, man. No, honestly, I think this is a really obnoxious conversation just because I say that pancakes are my favorite. It's somehow a slight because people hear pancakes are my favorite. AJ must not like waffles, and it's like waffles are amazing. Waffles are great. Pancakes are great. French toast is great. Crepes are wannabes. They're still tasty, but they're wannabes. But they're all like, there's a time and a place. You know, they all have elite qualities, and that's the real truth of it, is that this is a pick your poison kind of thing. They're all delicious. Pancakes just happen to be my favorite.
I really don't think you can go wrong with breakfast in general, to be honest. Even like cereal for dinner, delicious. All right, hard to miss. One more here.
Rudo only says that because he gets out of bed at 4 p.m.
I got out of bed today. What time is it?
Yeah, welcome to a new world, buddy.
One more question here for this segment coming from Lisa. She's new to the podcast and would love to hear, 1, how we each got into podcasting, and 2, who is your favorite Avs player, past or current? My favorite Av of all time is Peter Forsberg. He's the reason that I fell in love with hockey. I feel like there's not an interesting story about how I got into podcasting. I started covering the Avs on YouTube by myself, and the inevitable next step in covering the team was to join up with other people and start talking about them on a podcast. It's kind of that simple. Favorite players?
I also liked Peter Forsberg.
A good choice. AJ's going to say Wah. Moving on.
Yeah, mine was Patrick Wah.
Already knew that. Anyway, thank you for watching, Lisa, and welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy.
I will also say I don't know if that will last though, because I derive an awful lot of joy from watching Cale Makar play hockey.
Cale Makar's pretty good.
He is I just in terms of getting to watch the Avalanche every day, he's a dreamboat.
So let me expand on this. Let me ask you this. Does Cale Makar have the opportunity to become the best Av of all time? Like, obviously, a lot of things have to go right there, but it's probably either Wall or Sakic. Can Cale Makar take that crown if he has a relatively successful career here in Colorado from here?
I think so. I think health plays a factor in it, but that's the kind of thing I never want to invite or talk about too much. But because of the long road ahead, then that he could be in an Avs uniform, there's opportunity for another cup or two and the opportunity to be a captain. And I think those things will make a very compelling case for Cale Makar.
Agree.
Yeah, I think he certainly has a shot, and the way that he would push Wah would be that I think there's a possibility that he has the kind of transformational effect on how kids growing up play defense and how defense gets coached the same way that Wah did with goaltending. And I think that was a large part of Wah's legacy, was not just how good he was, but the way that he redefined the position that he played.
Yeah.
And I think that we could see an entire 20 years from now, we could look back and say, I mean, these guys are all similar ages to him, though. It's not like they grew up on the Cale Makar thing. But I do think that you're going to have more kids that might be put at forward playing youth hockey, playing defense as a kid, and getting and not getting put into that mold by youth coaches because they see the success of a guy like Makar. They see the success of offensive defensemen in this era, and they say, "I'm going to do that." I mean, one of Z's nephews, diehard Jets fan, of course, right?
Yep.
Loves the Jets. Wears number 8. So,
yep.
And you should have seen his eyes light up the first time that I met him, and he asked if I'd met Cale Makar, and I said yes, and he was like, blew his little mind. It was awesome. But like, I think that's coming. So I do think that Makar has a chance to chase down Wah in terms of like that overall impact like that. Now, being as good as Sakic was, I mean, that's a I definitely think he's got a shot there too. But both of those are tall tasks. But to answer the other part of the question, just how we got here. Basically, I was working in hotels and was just a hockey junkie, and I started writing at Mile High Hockey about the Avalanche and was part of that community and blah 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 for a long time. And then we started we started dabbling in podcasting. BSN Denver started. I started running BSN Avalanche, and then we started our podcast network, and so I was on that, and I just haven't left. So, online Avs fans have been stuck with me for a long time.
Hopefully for a lot longer. Anyway.
And hopefully.
I did want to jump off of Megan's topic about Cale Makar being a potential future captain, but before we get to that, we are brought to you by Breckenridge Distillery. They have award-winning bourbon whiskey and award-winning gin now, too. They win a lot of awards for their liquor. So go check them out if you haven't. They're known as the highest distillery in the country. Obviously, they're in Colorado, up high in the mountains. You know, it's also Colorado. Maybe they're smoking some weed. I don't know. But they make great alcohol. That's the point that I'm trying to make here at Breckenridge Distillery. Their whiskey has won the Best Whiskey Award 9 years running. It's not running. They missed a couple years in there. But 9 years they've won the best whiskey in the country. So you're going to want to go try it. We'll put it to you that way. It's delicious stuff if you haven't gotten in on it. You can go to BreckenridgeDistillery.com to look at all of their products and order online for delivery today. Or, of course, if you are here local, you got to go check out their distillery. You can get yourself some directly from the source with their distillery option. Look, there are plenty of options near you as well. You don't have to go there. You can just go to your local liquor store and you'll be able to find Breck Distillery. They're in all 50 of the United States. And again, you can go to BreckenridgeDistillery.com for home delivery of their award-winning Breckenridge spirits. And then we're also brought to you by Kind Love, maybe the reason they are the highest distillery in the country. You can go to Kind Love and use the DNVR code to get 25% off any of their flour, gummies, their turbo joints, anything they've got that's not already on sale. DNVR code gets you 25% off at Kind Love. They're the OG dispensary in Colorado. They've been around since 2010. They know what they're doing. All of their products are farm to table, as it were. They grow their own stuff, and then they put it on their shelves for you. So go check them out. If you want to just stick one in a spliff or something, that's what the turbo joint is for. Little toothpick that you just plug in there. I don't need more than a puff or two from the turbo joint, and I am good for the night. Let me tell you, that thing is strong. I've never been a gummies guy. AJ, I know you're a fan of the gummies, though. How do they work?
You eat them.
Oh, is that complicated device you've got there?
Yeah. No, they were great. I frequently look back and have a good laugh at the couple of nights in which I burned through all of my Kind Love gummies.
Good times.
They were fantastic. Yeah. Oh my god, dude. Video games are a lot harder to play, but they're a lot more fun to play when you've had gummies.
There you go. Go check out Kind Love today. They have stores in Cherry Creek or North Denver. Again, mention the DNVR code to get 25% off flour, pre-rolls, and their turbo joint line. You can also go to kindlove.com to use that code for online ordering and see their full extensive menu. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. I know we've talked about this before, some here and there. Gabe Landeskog, still the captain of the team, but won't be on the ice, won't be out there in games. Is the vocal leader when it comes to in the moment, on the ice, talking to refs, things like that? Is it going to be Cale Makar? Is it Mikko Rantanen? Is it, that can't be Mikko, right? But
I think it could be Mikko.
The way he was talking to refs last year, I don't know.
I think he could do it.
All right. Is it by committee a little bit?
I think so, and I think this is where Cale Makar, I'd like to see him take a step forward because he has the presence in the room, and he's chiming in important moments, and he has great perspective. But I think there's a part of him that is so humble that he steps aside for someone else to speak first. That's just the impression that I get from him. And I'd like to see him self-initiate, just speaking up completely on his own. And I think some of it is stepping on toes. Like, I think he really undersells how much of a voice he is in the room and wants to give way to a Rantanen or a McKinnon, whatever he wants to speak up. And now there's a void with Erik Johnson gone and Landeskog not on the ice in games with them that I'd really like to see him step into, because he has all of the qualities already as a leader. And I think he just sells himself short in that arena, but he has everything it takes.
All right.
I echo everything that Megan said.
So that would certainly be a step towards trying to chase down someone like Sakic if he were to step into that role. Obviously, actually becoming captain, well, that depends on how Landeskog's health turns out, probably. But
he can grow into it. Like,
for sure.
That's kind of where I think it would make sense for him, too, is to not immediately be asked this, but to be given more and more opportunity and responsibility.
Yeah, little by little would certainly make sense. Certainly is capable on the ice, no matter what. So this is it. I think it's an interesting conversation a little bit, because this is an unbelievably talented team, even without Gabe Landeskog. You look at the top of their lineup, and they, if anything, the leadership is they lead with their play as much as with their voice. So if Nathan McKinnon's going to go out there and dunk on fools, that'll work. Another one that we've had before, but I'm curious if you guys have any interesting ideas. This one's from Sean. The NHL gives you a chance to change the start and end time of the regular season. Ideally, when would you want the playoffs to start?
I mean, I've said before that first of all, I would like to shorten the season to make this a little more palatable.
Yeah.
But I would start the season with the Winter Classic on January 1st every year. That would be the kickoff, and I would start it with the Stanley Cup final participants from the previous season. So
sure,
that's what I would do. But the problem with that is I don't like how long into the summer that it runs, and draft season would also be kind of a mess because when do you do the draft?
Yeah.
And the rest of the hockey season, it'd be so misaligned with the rest of the hockey world that I think it has real problems. But I think I've always liked that idea, but that's probably how I would do it. And then you would just run, a 5-month, 6-month regular season, whatever. And I would have a more standardized schedule if possible. Try to eliminate back-to-backs altogether, unless it's like back-to-backs, like you play 2 games in a row in St. Louis, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got to be in a city twice during the season. You just get them out of the way right together, and that way there's none of this, like the competitive advantage and disadvantages of rested versus not are so pronounced. You look at last year, the Avs might have won the division because of that pipe bursting in Nashville.
Yep.
Because they ended up not playing and flew home immediately while the Stars had to play that night and got into Denver at 3:00 in the morning. Yep. And the Avs beat the Stars pretty easily the next day because the Stars were a tired team, and the Avs weren't. And you look at that and you say the difference of 1 point being the difference in division, but that ended up being a low key really important factor. So I would try to get rid of back-to-backs altogether and make changes like that, but I like the idea of a Jan 1 start with the Winter Classic, knowing that it would make all the other things a lot more complicated.
So if you shortened the season to like 60-ish games,
I'd think say 66.
Sure, whatever the exact number is. I think you could start January. You could finish the Cup somewhere in August. And then you have the draft immediately. If you get the draft in before September, I think it would work. You'd still be okay because leagues don't really start up until September around the world. But I'm not... It would be tight, to say the least, to do it that. Certainly an 82-game season wouldn't fit.
I don't have a perfect answer.
Yeah,
I feel like this poses a problem for the summer months that would be the time off for players, and players with families and kids that are starting school might not love that their summer comes about right when their kids have to go back to school.
Yep.
And that could be a challenge for the players to get on board with, though I'm sure there would be some who are agreeable to it because of fewer games. I'm not sure.
Yeah, also the reason it will never happen because the
NHL will never allow this.
No. Ad revenue, pretty important, it turns out. And gate revenue and all of those things. But I would also say, especially for some areas like Florida, Arizona, even in Nashville and Dallas, more games in the summer, that cooling bill's getting expensive. Yeah. That ice is going to be a little dicey, would put it that way. So I think it's pretty tough for the NHL to actually change when they play their schedule. But it's not changing in the immediate. I'll put it that way. I don't think a whole lot's going to change until Bettman retires probably, as far as mechanically how the league does its stuff. But we can move on a very Bettman topic. If you could put an expansion team in any city, which city would you pick? Obviously, the ones that are always talked about are Kansas City, I think, has been in the conversation. Obviously, Houston in Texas has been a big one in conversation. Quebec always looming, but they're never getting an expansion team. Sorry. Any particular preferences from you guys?
Yes.
Everywhere? Just all of them?
Obviously, Houston deserves a hockey team. I mean, it's a city like with a rich hockey history, a long running track record of support, and it's a giant market that you don't ever have to worry about, oh, can they make money or not? Can they fill the building? Do we have you're not ever going to worry about any of that. You have a huge market, and you have a really passionate group of people that, it's just a great sports town. Drop a hockey team into it and just watch it flourish, as it has for a very long time in Houston, for like 50 years. So, yeah, I'm biased, obviously, but bring back the arrows, you sons of bitches.
Megan, can you take us somewhere a little bit colder?
I could be sold on Salt Lake City.
Okay.
I think that there is the potential for that to be such a hockey market, just knowing that there is already hockey in Utah. I think that's something that could be built upon. And I think geographically it makes a lot of sense. I don't think it would throw a wrench in travel between.
If anything, I think it would help travel for the Central.
I think so.
Kind of the same with Kansas City. One of the major problems with the current divisional alignment is the West Coast. Unless you're a California team, your travel is significantly worse than a lot of the other teams in the league.
Yeah.
So I would not mind seeing, honestly, all three. SLC, Kansas City, and Houston. Make it happen. I'm here for it.
I'm here for another California team. I think that could really build, especially if it had the amount of success as immediately as a Vegas or Seattle did. I think that could make for a fun rivalry among the other California teams if they get better.
We'll have a whole California division pretty soon. Someone said Portland. That'd be cool too. More stuff on the West Coast. How about that? If you wanted East Coast, maybe like Milwaukee, I think. Someone said you could go back to Hartford. Sure.
East Coast. Did you mention Milwaukee?
I mean, it'd be in the Eastern Eastern Conference if you were in Milwaukee. So
Atlanta.
Honestly though, like Atlanta makes a lot of sense if you get a decent ownership group.
Atlanta's just such a blah sports town, though. Yeah. I mean, it's no Miami where it's hilariously overrated, but Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta has had 2 failures of NHL teams there, and so for me, it's like you're blacklisted. You got 2 kicks. You got 2 kicks at this can. No. The answer is no.
You can always move them to Quebec City when they fail again.
Okay. Great. So you can move them again in 20 years? Like, come on.
Quebec's going to be mad at AJ for that, I think.
Great. I'm mad at Quebec.
We can move on here. Well, hang on. Let me find this question. The one that I was looking for. All right.
How's the weather there?
It's actually been pretty nice.
It's really nice right now.
Yeah.
Nice.
How's Winnipeg?
That's fine.
Good. Yeah. Nice. What are your thoughts on a new rule where, in the case of a bench minor, the team going on the power play gets to choose the player who serves the penalty? Would that really matter? Would it have any impact?
I mean, yeah, Because if that happened to the Avs, you would pick Devon Taves, right?
Him or, I mean, yeah, it really just would be him at this point.
Like, I'm assuming that you can't pick the goalie. That would be pretty funny. Like, we're throwing the backup goalie in cold. Yeah, no, I guess I just don't understand the point. Like,
it strikes me as funny because I feel like you would want to implement something like that for a more egregious intentional penalty, whereas sometimes those are silly little mistakes, and that feels like it would be penalized more than infractions in game that are like actually really bad.
Yeah, I just don't think it makes that much of a difference, even if you're putting Devon Taves in the box for those. Like, teams kill penalties with one of their penalty killers in the box all the time. It just doesn't matter that much.
The vast majority of the time, in fact.
Yeah. So,
like, a bad PK is at 77%, you know? Like, it's like... no, I mean, I feel like this is just getting really cute for the sake of getting really cute with the rules.
Yeah.
Or you're just making it overly complicated.
Bigger fish to fry there, maybe.
Yeah.
2 questions here. First, what is the ideal end to this offseason to fill the hole still left on the Avalanche roster? We've talked a lot about the Avs probably looking at a PTO or a potential late season cheap signing. AJ, I know you've been on the defenseman train, an Ethan Bear type or something like that, but
yeah, I mean, Caleb Jones would be, I think, just a great fit. You know, I just
makes
that guy's
sense.
Just kind of a perfect fit for what you're after and price range and blah 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 blah. You know, a guy like Tatar would also be a really nice like late summer
cheap veteran scoring forward.
Yeah, although you see Matt Dumba get $4 million,
yeah.
You know, Tarasenko gets 5, and you're just kind of like, what are we doing here? Like,
guys couldn't get this done on July 5th.
Well, that's $9 million more out of the pool for teams to spend. So
it's true.
You know, we're inching closer to teams having to give out the $1 million deal.
Megan, is this the Danton Heinen podcast now?
Is it the Danton Heinen podcast?
That'd be fun too.
I'm curious to see if there's a player in a position similar to Evan Rodriguez.
Sure.
It could be Tomas Tatar territory, like AJ's describing. That would be a step above a Danton Heinen. So before I enter the Danton Heinen conversation, I want to see that option fully realized.
Okay.
And then I also still think, even with a late season ad on the cheap, I still think a PTO is also an option. I think both of those things should happen. Unless, you know, we get closer to the start of camp and there just aren't a lot of great options out there, or players are being really firm in what they're asking for, then I'd start asking about Danton Heinen. That isn't to insult Danton Heinen. It's just, I still think that there's a market of players out there that are still available that I'm surprised to see are still available that I'd be curious about first.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Give Danton Heinen a PTO.
Thank you.
Problem solved. Which I'm trying to remember the last year the Avs haven't given at least 1 PTO, and I don't. It's been a long time. They usually give out 1.
The COVID year where there was no training camp.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah, and it's like that's the only time in the last like 5 or 6 years that they have not. I mean, they just
their PTOs regularly don't work out. You know, obviously there's a list of guys like Kurz Glencross, Jared Cowan, Anisimov. Yeah, who was it that like didn't even pass their physical?
Wasn't.
Oh my God, I'm totally drawing a blank. He played in Carolina for a long time.
Talusti?
Yeah, that was it. Yuri Talusti.
Yep. So
a guy that we were all excited about because it was like, hey, that's a good player. Like, all right, cool. And then doesn't pass his physical, and then I'll never forget the way Jared Bednar like talked about him in that presser where he was just like, well, he didn't pass his physical, so, And it was like, what? Did you guys murder him? Like, is his body out back? What happened? So weird.
And then the other question here, I don't really have a good answer for you on this one, but how do you apply to be on the DNVR sports shows? Do you have to intern, or is there a place to apply?
So we'll post a job listing, and then people can apply to it from there, and then we'll go through the candidates, and we'll reach out, we'll talk, and we'll do whatever. And I wouldn't be incredibly surprised if something like that happens in the next week or two. So, if anybody was interested, I mean, we would all like tweet that out and be like, hey, look, if you want to join the team, rah, rah, rah. So that would be probably the way to go about it.
There is a physical that you have to complete to join DNVR. It's not what you think, though. It requires at least one cartwheel, and I just want to let you all know that.
If you don't pass, you can find your corpse out back of the bar.
Yeah. Megan was really worried about her cartwheel. We made her do it. We made her do it in the bar during college football. So.
Okay. On that note, we are brought to you by the folks over at Volo Sports. You can get your action on with Volo if you're looking for Social Sports League. They're the biggest social sports company in the country. Best part is you play so kids can play free. A lot of the proceeds go towards kids camps and things like that so they can play sports just like you do with your friends at Volo. I think the kickball league is still going, but it should be winding down pretty soon here as we're getting into the fall leagues at this point with Volo. Obviously, they have tons of different sports that you can get yourself into. Pretty much everything under the sun if you want to jump in on it. You can get the Volo Pass, which is a monthly membership program that gives unlimited access to all of their events, be it sports, social nights, or anything else. You get unlimited pickup and drop-ins and tournaments. It's just $20 a month, or you can get the beta version for the first 3 months where it's just $10 a month. They're all over the city, including Lodo, Rhino, Uptown, City Park, the Highlands, Sloan's Lake, Cherry Creek, DU, Inglewood, Arvada, Aurora, Northfield, and much, much more than that. Get in on the fall leagues now. You can use the DNVR 10 code to get $10 off whatever you sign up for, whether it be a league or the Volo Pass or whatever, at volosports.com/Denver today. So jump in, come have some fun playing sports with all of us. And we're also brought to you by the fantastic Shady Rays, which you can put on. Make sure you're wearing them when you go out and play Volo Sports. Either that or your raincoat. It's one or the other in Denver these days. Maybe both. Honestly, most days it's probably both. Go to shadyrays.com today to get your sunglasses. You can get one pair and then you get a second pair. You get 50% off your order when you use code DNVR at checkout. Highly recommend these guys. They've had over 250,000 people giving them 5 stars, tons of different designs, styles, all that good stuff. And you can even get your 30-day guarantee where if you don't like them, you break them or you lose them in the first 30 days, send them back or let them know you lost them, and they will replace them completely for free. So again, check them out at shadyrays.com. Use the DNVR code. Or if you're local, they have a brick and mortar in the Park Meadows Mall. You can check them out there. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Going through listener questions. Next up, we have who is your favorite Autobot?
I like that you both looked at me.
I figured you would have an answer ready for that one. No, you're not prepared.
Transformers weren't really. If you got into Transformers, you were more of a Decepticon fan.
It's fair. I was never really into Transformers as a kid. The new movies, I really like Bumblebee from the first movie. And then the movies got old pretty fast, honestly. But I guess I'll say Bumblebee.
Big Megatron fan.
That was actually a nickname growing up.
Perfect.
/ Megazord from Power Rangers.
That's way better than Transformers, all right?
Yeah, my siblings struggled with my name for some reason, so they actually called me Megazord, and it got shortened to Megazoo, which eventually just got shortened to Zoo. So my family still calls me Zoo, and it's a really difficult nickname to explain.
All right. We're going to start calling you Zoo on the show.
Zoo.
Next question, as we keep moving on here. How have your opinions on the hockey metagame shifted since you started covering the league? I know that's a weird question, but I would just say, how have your opinions about hockey shifted since you started professionally covering the league?
I have a lot more respect for the old school mentality of thought than when I first started. And I thought, this is stupid. Why do people believe this? And then you see up close why some of those things have been like a part of team building and the school of thought, conventional wisdom for a really long time in the league. There are some of things that there's some of that stuff that I used to kind of just dismiss out of hand, and being exposed to it, seeing it up close, and kind of seeing how, and I think being in Colorado has helped, because we got to watch a team that had a very old school approach to everything.
Yeah.
Really transform itself and blend in, find a really nice mixture. And this had a lot to do, I think, with McFarland coming in when they hired him out of Columbus. But mixing some of that old school stuff with the use of analytics and the modeling that they work on, and some of the cutting edge stuff that the Avalanche are actually at the forefront of in the NHL. So I think that's seeing an organization do that. I have a lot more respect for that part of it. And that was maybe the thing that surprised me the most was that, and I would also say talking to coaches has been really interesting, and getting to know just getting to know them a little bit and having conversations with them about the game, off the record, honest conversations about things, where it's not, it's not somebody giving me a bunch of cliched bullshit, and it's a bunch of really interesting insights. You get an idea for even coaches that you don't think are very good. Oh my God, do they notice a lot of stuff?
Man.
Like, do they ever pick up on tiny details? Do they ever retain so much information that it kind of blows you away when you're just like, God, there are really high levels to this. And again, even for guys that I don't think are very good coaches, just having some conversations with them over the years where you're just like, Jesus Christ, like this is like when we talk about like a guy like Curtis McDermott, who may not be a very good NHL player, but in terms of hockey players
the top 1%
versus the rest of the world, yeah, you're like, this guy is insanely good. He's just not good relative to the absolute best of the best in this field. And having conversations with coaches like that, I think, was very illuminating for me.
For sure. We can move on to the next one. Anything else to add?
It's similar on the coaching side of things. I'm really fortunate that my exposure to hockey started as a student at DU. One of my first jobs in hockey was under a Montgomery era of hockey. And so the coaches I've gotten to see a little bit up close have been Monty, and then immediate jump to Bednar and Cronin. And obviously more hands-on working with Cronin and Bednar than ever with Monty, but getting to see what AJ is describing and hear from these coaches, and from my perspective, being embraced by that side of hockey and respected and treated as an equal. I'm embarrassed to admit that was something that came as a bit of a surprise, but the way in which people who work in hockey, players, staff, coaching personnel, have treated me as an equal has been such an encouraging part of doing this job and being involved with the sport in this way that has made me really hopeful about the direction that it's going. And it's interesting to see the way, though, the old school mindset that AJ also describes isn't absent from today's game. it's still interwoven in there, but there are aspects of it that have been extremely welcoming to more people like me who feel like an unconventional hockey person. Being accepted in that space has come as a pleasant surprise.
I especially think, just given our backgrounds, the three of us, and certainly Megan, you and I spending a lot more time at the actual rink and in the locker room and stuff, that imposter syndrome is
it's so
very,
real.
very real.
It's so real.
And it is a big thing to contend with, on a like the day-to-day of this stuff. And I think that acceptance and that, finding your place in that world is a really interesting personal journey that looks and feels different for all of us, but you kind of hope to end up at the same place on the other side where you're like, I belong here, I'm making cool content, we have a cool community, people accept me, waking up and going to work every day is not a miserable experience. This actually kind of rules. And that, I think, is also an interesting part of just the personal side of it, the personal journey that we all have had to go through, and are still going through. I mean, you never have to stop proving yourself in the world. So it's definitely an interesting, just an interesting world to live in.
All right. Next question. Who is one player that gets labeled a disappointment you think would have a good career if they were in a different situation? I'll go first since I've been looking at this question. I would say Mikhail Grigorenko, I think, is a big one for me. First of all, Buffalo didn't know what they were doing with him. They rushed him to the league. They didn't really understand how to get the most out of him for the early parts of his career. Obviously, he comes to Colorado eventually, and the talent level there is obvious. The guy is fully capable of being an NHL player. Someone needed to figure out how to get a little bit more work ethic out of him, or he needed to find a coach that was a little bit more lenient on something like that. Bednar was just not tolerant of that style of player. It probably was a little bit lazy at times, but a lot more intelligent and played in a certain way that isn't full bore Logan O'Connor crash into everything all the time. And so it didn't really work out in Colorado for him. I think he tried to come back for 1 year with Columbus and it just didn't work at all. I'm not saying there was a ton of ways that it was going to work out for Grigorenko, but I think if he found the right situation, that dude easily could have become a quality middle six NHL player, and it just never really worked out for him. So
similar style of answer, but I would also I would say Kamenev.
Sure.
Coming in the trade, the Avs had a lot of runway to let him figure it out in the NHL. His very brief AHL stints as a member of the Avs organization, he was really, really good. And then he would get to he got to the NHL and it was like, we're going to see how this goes.
Broken bone.
And then, he suffers 2 serious injuries. And during the time from during that window when he was recovering from those injuries, the Avs got good. And they ran out of the time that his development time for him to be a dude. And I think that hurt him so much because he was in a great situation on a bad team that was just trying to give ice time to young players to find him. And the injuries took that opportunity from him because by the time he got back, the Avs had a different mindset, their whole organizational philosophy. It was no longer, hey, rebuild and figure it out. It was, we're pretty good. We're here now, and we're just trying to get a lot better. And it was an increased focus on proven talent and not so much young guys still trying to figure it out.
I'm going to go in an also similar direction and pick Tyson Jost. If he had played for a different organization after the 48-point season, I don't think he would have been compelled to make the leap to the pros after his freshman year and could have spent a little bit more time in college, physically matured, and had maybe a little bit less expectation too at the pro level as a 10th overall pick, maybe somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
that could have been realized. I think the way in which he's transformed his game over time, because it was required of him, has allowed him to carve out an NHL role for himself. But I do think with the skill upside that was teased at the college level, there was possibly more to give if he wasn't asked to rush over to the pros and didn't make that decision himself.
Yeah, I definitely think in the right role or organization, Jost's career could have been more successful than it is, for sure.
Yeah. Jost is kind of similar to Kamenev in that, as it was just Jost was like on the ice as the transformation was happening for the Avs.
Yeah.
Because like when they signed him, it was like he got top 6 minutes. Those last couple of games, it was like, hey, we're gonna throw the kid in. Let's see what he does, and he looked pretty good. And then the Avs went out and got some guys, and then it was the Tyson Jost problem turned into that Alex Newhook problem, which has turned into now we're just not trying to do this anymore. We're not trying to develop young guys into these roles at the NHL. We're just gonna go get Ross Colton and figure it out. Like this is stupid. We suck at this. We're just gonna go get guys.
Next question. Megan and I already answered this on a show a while back, so this one's to you, AJ. Rate the top 5 national teams today.
The international teams, like
the teams that will be at the Olympics / World Cup / whatever.
Can I break Canada into 3 teams?
No, you get Canada is number 1, and then you have to go from there.
Damn it. Okay, so I would say Canada, the U.S., Sweden.
Wow.
Aiding
on Finland.
Then maybe Russia. Then I'm kind of in a toss-up between Russia and Finland.
No way. I have Finland at 2.
I just don't think the
hot take.
Yeah, I don't think the Finnish defense is deep enough.
I think that's their weakness for sure.
And that's the same place where I have the Russian weakness is the defensive depth. The defensive depth to me is my concern. But I think I like pick a Russian goalie, pick like a Russian
sure,
because Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, and Sorokin, I would take all
hard to miss
over.
there for sure. Yeah,
I take all of them over UC Saros. So I'm kind of at a toss-up between Russia and Finland. We'll say Finland, Russia, because Mikko.
Because Mikko.
Count it.
Do you think Lehkonen is on the Finnish team?
Yeah. I think it's not. I don't know if it'd be like a big role, but yeah, I think he's on that team.
I agree. Now, I think USA didn't get enough credit on the show when we spoke about it last. Who do you think are some of the top talents that make the USA team worth noting?
Oh my gosh. I think it's a super loaded team. Like it's a you could just call it an all-star team and we'd be fine, because you have Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes down the middle. You've got guys like Matt Tkachuk and Clayton Keller,
Eichel.
Alex DeBrincat, Jack Eichel. Yeah, on your wings, like you have Connor Hellebuck as your starting goaltender.
I worry about the defensive depth a little bit. Not to the level of like Finland necessarily, but
yeah, I would have to actually go and like look at a list because off the top of my head, I'm like Zach Werenski and Seth Jones, and I'm like, I know that it's better than that. But yeah, I think Charlie McAvoy would be on there.
Yeah,
Adam Fox would be on there. Like, I don't have an issue with the defensive depth. I just think it won't be as good as what Canada has because that's unfair.
I worry about their defense in actually playing defense. McAvoy obviously great there, but the rest of those guys, it's like, they're kind of offensive D.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that defense is probably going to be better than you're giving it credit for.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think right now just in terms of like right now, I would say I think USA is a pretty easy 2.
I don't agree, but that's fine.
I mean, they have their forwards are better than Finland's, and I think their defense is better and deeper, and their gold and Connor Hellebuck I would also take over UC Saros. So for me, I'm looking at it saying, where am I taking Finland here? And then everything that Finland does, Sweden does, I think just a little bit better and deeper.
I can see the argument for USA. I don't think Sweden is high end enough. But
okay.
Anyway,
I think you're on drugs.
We don't have time to really get into this conversation as we have gone for over an hour. So we do have to wrap this show up. We do appreciate everyone who sent in questions. I know we couldn't get to them all, but thank you to everybody. We will be back tomorrow, probably talking about Carlson and Dumba's contract. Well, Carlson's trade, Dumba's contract. So be sure to tune in 10:45 Mountain Time. Same thing. Get used to it because that's what we're doing for the next month. Any final thoughts from you two before we get out of here? No? All right. We're going to wrap it up. We appreciate all of y'all, and we will talk to you tomorrow.